Dental Podcast,
where real people,
real stories,
and real life come together.
This is the Life and Dentistry Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Life and Dentistry Podcast.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, everybody.
What's going on, America?
We got a treat for y'all today.
We're getting hacked.
Oh man!
Hey, I like the American flag backdrop there, Joe. Good job
Very
on that.
patriotic.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, have y'all seen the Weather Channel? It's like about to get some rain again.
So, Joe, is it going to rain here tomorrow in South Georgia or what?
Let's see what you got down there. Oh man,
A little bit.
Tomorrow.
Well,
Hey, there's some hurricane that's supposed to hit Texas like tonight or tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, well, this map I'm using is from a couple weeks ago. So.
Hey, you need to have a Dental Hacks backdrop there.
Actually,
I think he does. Yeah.
So
yeah. Can you do that?
Where is it?
Let's introduce our guest today with this backdrop.
There
You
it is.
listen to our
See half his
podcast.
face.
We know you listen to the Dental Hacks podcast. We have Alan Mead joining the discussion tonight.
What?
Dum dum dum.
In the flesh.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Alan, is your head really small or is that mic really big?
Yes. It's a big mic. I actually have kind of a large head. So I don't know. It's just it's a big mic. I have to show the mic superiority. That's what it comes down to.
There you go. Well, hey, it's an honor. It's when I think we've told you this before. When we went down to the Voices, you were the first person that we talked to, and John Wesley was like, "Do you know who that is?" He's like, "I recognize that voice." He's like, "We just walked past and talked to Alan Mead."
Yeah, because that's the guy.
podcast.
That's the guy in my ears all the time. You know, I was like, I know that voice.
We were starstruck.
That's a weird thing when it happens. That's a weird thing. When I was at what was it? It was the Practice on Fire meeting. I was talking to someone, and some people in front of me in the lunch line turned around and pinned me down. They didn't even look at me. It's just they heard my voice. That's an odd thing, and frankly, I'll probably never get used to that. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, but it's weird.
Well, Alan, you're a celebrity, man. To us, you're a celebrity. People know you all over the country, dentists. Like, you have the largest dental Facebook group, Dental Hack Nation. Like, what? Do you feel like a celebrity?
No, I absolutely don't. I've had this question asked me a bunch of times lately, and I seriously don't. Like, where's my limo? I don't get it. You know, and the other thing is my practice is like the same as it's always been too. Like, my patients do not think I'm a celebrity. The people that my children, no celebrity. My wife, definitely not. So yeah, it's odd amongst dentists. I can kind of flex some muscles a little bit, but then there's the dentists who've never heard of podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh,
unimpressed.
yeah. The two that I'm working with.
Yeah. They are unimpressed. Exactly.
They hear podcasts, they're like, "You geek? What?
Yeah, exactly.
I was talking with a dentist actually maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was trying to explain that we graduate dental school and we have a little podcast we do. And he was asking me podcast like, now, is that like, what is that? It's kind of like a radio show. He's like, oh, I've never heard of that. I'm like, okay, well, crap.
Well, it's. I mean, you always hear in the podcast community they always talk about growth, year over year growth, and all that stuff. But the reality is still not that many people, and even people who know technology, there's only certain people that are enthusiasts enough to want to listen to this kind of stuff when they're not working, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, it blows my mind how every dental student in the U.S. or the country, the world is not listening to podcasts because it's literally free CE. I know we've said that several times, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, like Costas, y'all. I mean, even if you just listen to 2 or 3 podcasts consistently, it's amazing the amount of information you can get, and you don't have to pay a dime.
Oh yeah.
I agree. It's not. as Smithson says, it's not hands-on. It's not. There's some stuff you can't learn, but frankly, you just, I don't know. Like I started with Dental Town back in like 2002, and I mean, much of what I do in my practice now is influenced by that. So that was kind of like pre-podcast for me, and I was on it constantly. It was like Facebook is now. It's on it constantly, but again, that was kind of thing. You learn all these things from people, and you get to learn things from people that you can get a feel for. Like there'd be certain people on Dental Town that would write stuff that I'm like, yeah, I totally can jive with that. And then there were some people that would be doing stuff that I was kind of uninterested in. And so it was just like you could take what you needed, you could leave the rest. I went to a couple Dental Town meetings and it was exactly that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing that guy in person for the first time. It's insane, right? And so, I mean, I've experienced that for quite some time. Podcasts are just that much more because literally we're in each other's heads. It's like, so it's a trip. I mean, it really is.
It is.
So we mentioned a Voices conference, Alan, and obviously it's a big thing for podcasters. For us, that was like a life-changing event for us.
See, I wish I could have made the 2017, but
we left not just so excited about podcasting, but just being dentists, learning from people like you who have so much information to share. I just can't wait. I know y'all have put together a website. You've started to get some announcements out there about this next Voices of Dentistry Summit. I just cannot wait. I've been sharing it with people like crazy. You have got to go. I mean, for me, it's one of those things that you just cannot miss. You don't understand what you're missing until you get there and you're like, this would have been a nightmare if I hadn't have made it, and I would have had no clue.
It's funny because, of course, we did it for the first time last year. We really didn't. We had an idea what we wanted. We'd never done it, so we didn't know what was going to work and what wasn't going to work and all that stuff. And it was beyond what we could have expected. It was so much better than what we were hoping for. And I got to say, I got to give credit to Moody. It's because of him that the vision that I had for it was executed by him. In other words, I thought this is going to be a meeting for podcasters and the people that like to listen to podcasters. And there will be CE, but there will be podcasting. And that's what Moody did. He brought all of, like a lot of us were podcasting, but I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't do any recording until after the meeting was over. Like I was so busy running around doing the meeting stuff. I didn't, but man, every time he went in there, Moody was in there, and that was what I wanted. And so here's the thing. Yeah. 2018, there's going to be a lot more of that. There's going to be a lot more of that. That's the story. The podcast lounge is going to be the place to be, period.
I'm excited. Yep. I'm really excited.
What other big plans do y'all have for this next one?
Well, first off, the location's just better. The venue is really, really nice. I haven't been there yet, but apparently, according to Costas, it's amazing. So that's really cool.
Scottsdale, right?
Yes, it's Scottsdale, and it's the DoubleTree Resort in Scottsdale. So I think we have a link on the website. It's voicesdentistry.com. There's a link to there should be a link to the rooms and all that stuff to sign up. And right now, got to say, sign up before September 18th if you're thinking of going, because it's $300 cheaper if you do it before then. It's $597, which is honestly, you can't get CE for that cheap anywhere.
Yeah.
I know we're asking you to sign up pretty early for a meeting next January, but everyone procrastinates all the time. And and I'll tell you, I can say this as a meeting planner, which I have not that much experience, just last year. Man, if we could have everyone signed up and save $300 and like know how many people are coming, that'd be so helpful. Yeah, we might be losing out on $300 a person, but it'd be so helpful because you never really know. But I can say that all I want. 50+% of the people that come are going to procrastinate because that's what I do too. So I get it. But
the Life and Dentistry crew are going to be there. We're going to sign up tonight. So
I mean, I get it. And my thing is like, well, even as the planning is one of these things where we should be more on top of it than we are. We're doing okay, but understand we are not professional meeting planners. We're dentists that are putting a meeting together.
That's right.
Well, I gotta say this. I mean,
because it's real.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The whole weekend was amazing for one thing, but one of the coolest things was I think it was on the second day when we had breakfast. Okay, so we came back to the hotel or the venue, sat down, and I think was it Gary Tagish and Dr. Costas sat down at the table with us, just randomly sat
Yep.
down. And
Yep.
of course, now we know who they are. Now they had no
Yep.
idea who we are. We're just dental students. But that the Voices of Dentistry was the reason that was able to happen. Like that moment happened.
Yep.
You know, and like we've developed a relationship with Gary. We got to meet Dr. Costas. You know, we've been in contact with him. I mean, it's just so amazing what happened in a 2-day span, and all because you guys got that going. So
it was crazy. Like the amount of interaction in the meeting was more than I've ever seen in any meeting before. It didn't feel like a dental meeting, to tell you the truth. I mean, it did when you were listening to speakers, but it really was. It was different. I don't even know how to describe it, except it was way different than anything that I was expecting.
And we were dental students too, and the respect that you guys gave us, like, you know, we weren't dentists. We were fourth-year dental students coming in our first CE event.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys welcomed us in. You know, you had our lanyards ready.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you came right up. We walked in the door. You walked up to us. You know, hey, how you doing? You know, breakfast is up there, Big Joe. Go get you some food. You know, that's how it was.
Joe's all about that food. I tell you what.
I mean, it was one of these things where because we didn't really even know what it was going to be like. So you got to kind of just like I look back in the venue. Okay, so this is the best. I went down to last October. So God, like almost a year ago, I went down and I spoke at a continuing education thing that Dr. Russell Kirk was giving to his referrals, and I hung out in Nashville a bit. I went over to Corey Glenn's. We did some stuff. It was great. It's a good October.
Oh, yeah.
And but I got there a night early so I could see the venue, and the venue when it wasn't set up for a meeting was less impressive. And honestly, the horrible thing is when you're going to Nashville and you say, well, okay, it was the Inn at Opryland. But everyone was thinking, and it's a Gaylord hotel, so they're thinking it's the Gaylord in Nashville, which is this big fancy. I'm like, no, not that one, not that one.
We drove to that one.
Yeah,
of course you did.
Right.
Everyone did.
How do you say that? Yeah,
I knew they were going to, and they're like, no, you go back to the Holiday Inn. Is essentially what it was. And the best is when I went there alone. I was completely alone. This is a dumb thing for me to do. I was there a night early, and I really wanted to see the venue, and I'm walking around. I had a room on the outside on the second floor. It was so motor hotel. It couldn't have been. I mean, like I'm like, oh my God. And a meeting wasn't set up, so it was just kids doing cannonballs into the pool. And I'm thinking, God, this is going to be like the worst wedding that I've ever been to in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or something. I'm like, this venue is a nightmare. But in reality, when we did the meeting, I liked it a lot. And it was the same place. It just was set up really nicely. I thought it was great.
It was great. And, you know, it was cool because it was real and it was genuine. So, you know, I want to transition a little bit to kind of what we normally do on our episodes and share some weekly experiences. And I want to get Alan's advice. Maybe we can all kind of share some stuff that happened to us this week. And, you know, man, we're all like, a month, 2 months in to being a dentist, and we're learning a lot. And I feel like every time I learn something, I kind of get knocked down. So I got a story that happened yesterday. Basically, a lady came in, tooth was necrotic, needed a root canal. So I planned for a root canal. I started, and she looks at me and says, "So how long have you been a dentist?" I said, "About a month." And her face got really
I get that every day.
Her face got really red, and she said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Is that okay?" And she kind of like, "I just wasn't expecting you to say that." And I just look at her like straight face, and I'm like, "Well, I'm more than confident and capable to take care of your tooth." You know, I'm like, and that was nice, you know, I'm like, let's get going. So I'll start this root canal. Long story short, I'll put the picture.
Yeah, show the picture. That's what I was.
Oh yes, can you do that?
You gonna put it on the green screen?
I will. Let me work. I'll work on that right now. So long story short, freaking perforated this root canal. In the second molar, I thought I had all three canals. I took an x-ray, and one is just right down the center, man. And my heart just sank.
If I remember correctly, did you perforate a few teeth in dental school too?
Anyway, so
Dang, Joe.
my confidence was a little bit rattled, Alan, and it's tough. It was a tough struggle because as soon as I took that X-ray, I went and did a couple hygiene checks. So then you have to immediately forget about that and focus on these other patients. Like what? How did you deal with this when you first started, man?
when I first started. Interesting. When I first started, I would take
I don't know.
I'd take a handful of drugs. Actually, is how when I first started. That's what I would do. And I'm going to tell you that is not the right way to handle it. I mean, I will tell you that the endo thing is first off, I don't do molars. I don't do molars. I actually don't do lower premolars either. Toughest tooth in the mouth is the lower premolar, as far as I'm concerned. I pick and choose my endo like crazy. And I know that everyone says, oh, but if you're a new dentist, you can't pick and choose because you need the blah, blah. I'm like, baloney. I mean, that's not true at all. I know everyone says you really need to push your comfort level. I'm like, that's great. But you also need to you kind of need to be comfortable too. Like when you push your comfort level all the time, check your cortisol levels, man. That's stressful as hell. Okay. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do molars. I'm not saying that. I don't do molars is what I'm saying. And I've been doing this for 20 years. And I don't do them because I don't like them. They don't make me feel good. I've had experiences like that more recently than I would like to admit.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I got microscopes all over my whole office. I don't, as much as I want to. Okay, so I've told this story before. I lost a bunch of weight back in. Don't worry, I gained it all back. No worries there. But I lost in 2005. I honestly, I lost like 70 pounds or something.
Wow.
Oh man.
And it's frustrating to me that I know how to do it. I sort of lost my train of thought there. Hang on, this is a good story though. Let me think about it. I was telling us.
Take your time.
Oh, okay, I got it. That's what it was. I lost this weight, and one of the things I did, I exercised a ton. I worked on diet. I did all this stuff, but. In my mind, there was a point where I said, people who are skinny should be running. And so I ran. I mean, I did. And I would run. There are days I'd run twice a day. You know, and I was doing 5Ks. And I'm not built like a runner at all. But okay, in my mind, I thought that. And I have microscopes all over my office. I got 4 of them. Microscope dentists should be doing endo, right? That's what I think to myself. I'm like, I don't like endo. I'm not very good at it. and I mean, and I continue to have to struggle with this. I'm okay with that today, but it's one of these things where like, there's some things you don't have to do it. And I'm not saying, what I'm saying is this has been my experience over time. It isn't necessarily that one experience that goes poorly is not the reason to stop. But I understand why you feel bad. I've had that happen. I think the last molar I worked on, it was probably a month and a half ago. Super necrotic tooth. I 2-stepped it. I came back on the second appointment. Some good calcium hydroxide down the canal. One spot that was a little bit more radiopaque than the rest of it, though. I was sort of surprised. And yeah,
there it is.
That's a canal that you were not looking for. I don't. You know what though? I don't know. That's it's hard to actually, honestly, from the angle, it's hard to tell a little bit on that. I think it's probably there, but I can understand. I don't think you were too far out of the world anyhow. But like I broke a file in the last molar endo that I worked on within the last month, and I had to send it to the endodontist. What I'm better at now? I'm better at explaining what happened and how, this wasn't part of the plan, and I'm going to send you to the person that can take care of this for you. I think we're okay. And the guy left, and we were still friends, and it was okay. That's the difference between now and when I was your age. Because I didn't know how to do that, and I also didn't know how to swallow my pride and admit that something didn't go the way I planned. It isn't that I did something wrong. It's that it didn't go the way that I planned it, and that was that.
So, Alan, let's say it gets to a situation where, I mean, have you had an experience to where you have a perf or something and it just cannot be salvaged? You can't send it to
sure. Yeah.
Save your rear end. So what is that conversation like where you're like, you know in advance there was a tooth you could save, whether it be complete the endo or whatever, and there was a mistake made. Now the tooth has to be extracted. What does that conversation look like?
It's tough. And I'm someone who's pretty into like pretty serious transparency. Again, I probably wouldn't say I made a mistake. It's more, and this is fair in medicine all the way around. A mistake was made is different than I made a mistake. You know, like this happened, not that I blew it necessarily, because instruments break and visualization isn't perfect. And I mean, endodontists have troubles too. And so in some ways, an expectation of perfection, that's not fair to you, even though you do your best. And honestly, there are times when you tried something you shouldn't have tried. That's real too. You got to own it. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're doing anything bad. It does mean you need to step back and evaluate your case selection, probably more than anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, okay, so if there were an endodontist in the room here, they'd point fingers and say, no, you should be. But let's not be self-serving. Let's talk about the most important person in the situation is the patient. You have to explain to them what happened in an honest way. You don't have to fall on your sword. And you have to, the best thing is to have patient communication skills so that you can understand that, you can help them understand what's going to happen next and what happened. It isn't, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard because I'm like, I didn't do really tough endo in the beginning. I just never would have even thought to do that because and I think it's great that young guys are brave doing a lot of these things. But I also think though that bravado can be a problem, right? I mean, like if you're too confident too early, these things will happen. And I'm not saying that's not what happened to Joe, but that kind of stuff can happen. And so you kind of have to take a deep breath and realize that it isn't, it's not all unicorns and rainbows all the time.
Dude, you bring up a good point. Do you think, like, looking at the generation of dentists where we're at, and I talked to my doctor, Dr. Brian, a lot about this. It's like, a lot of us are so eager and gung-ho, you hear us talking about implants and grafting and stuff like kind of invasive things and even, second molar root canals and things that are tough for dentistry. And it's not that we're confident, but it's like do you think we want to run before we can crawl sometimes? Or do you think maybe things have changed?
Well, you remember too that like there's different kinds of people practicing dentistry right now. There's I'm a chicken. I've always been a chicken. I mean, like I kept my head down and did as little as I could get away with in dental school. And I didn't want to get called on. I didn't want anyone to notice me. I didn't, I did what I had to do and no more. I tell a story. We had to do a 1 perio surgery before we left dental school. And we got to do it. We would do it with someone from the grad perio program. And I had Dr. Backdash, who is literally the sweetest man on the face of the earth. He wanted nothing more than for his undergrad dental student, me, to have a great experience. And I was so scared of what I had to do. I didn't, even though in my mind I knew what I had to do, I was just so frightened. He literally like held my hand as I was doing it. He was so sweet, but I didn't really get anything of it from because I was so afraid. And like literally, and in dental school, a lot of the instructors made you feel that way. And Dr. Backdash was the opposite. He wanted nothing but good things for me. And I was so gun shy on all of it that I missed out. So here's the guy. I'm a guy who, I do surgery, don't get me wrong, but I don't do a lot of surgery. Taking teeth out for me is different than cutting people open. That's the difference. I don't lay a lot of flaps when I'm taking teeth out. I think people might criticize me for it because it takes me a little longer, but I don't like cutting people open. Moody, he cuts people open all day long, so he does. I think there's two kinds of people in the world. I think you're smart to be like him. I've struggled to try and be that way, and I'm not. I mean, like, the closest I ever got to feeling comfortable with that was when I did the Dominican Republic with Dr. Garg, and I did a lot of surgery, and I did feel pretty good. But you know what? You have to keep doing the reps. Being comfortable with something comes with a lot of reps. Being comfortable with the armamentarium, being comfortable with the procedure, the A to B to C to D to finish the procedure, all that stuff, and that just comes with time to some extent. Case selection's just like that too. It's one of these things where. So my solution there is spend time on case selection and be really humble about case selection. If you can talk to a dentist who's been around for a little while, ask him to check your case selection. Just to check your ideas. That's a big deal. Of course I worked with my dad for a year out, and so he was looking out for me a lot. I think he knew I was a chicken too because he kind of is like that as well. So that was helpful. But you know, the other thing is you can always work on your verbal skills. Verbal skills are being able to talk to patients will get you out of a lot of scrapes. Like, and you know what? Being how to talk to patients, some of it is learning how to talk to patients. Some of it's how you are as a person. Some of it can't be taught, but a lot of it, I think the best thing is being like kind of transparently honest with a sense of humor goes a super long way. No patients want to be there. And that's something that actually, if they can get past it, can be quite funny. You can use that as a sense of humor kind of thing, but also being very honest about where you're coming from, what you're doing, what needs to be done. That's huge. Hiding stuff, making it, not explaining that doesn't do as well for me. That's been my experience. I don't know if that helps or not though.
Yep.
So Alan, that kind of touches on a little bit of something I wanted to ask you. I've heard you talk in a couple episodes about, our generation coming out, and Joe kind of hit on this a little bit, but kind of gung-ho and almost a little bit of the mentality of, I just came out of dental school, I can do all this stuff, I should get paid this amount, and this is how I can come into your practice and change this, this, and this. What suggestions do you have for new dentists or dental students about to graduate, the mentality they should have going into a practice, whether it be an associateship or whatever, to have the humility, but also put yourself in a position to learn and not just stay in the same place that you're at all the time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's tough because, like I said, my dad was my first boss for the first year out of school, and he was fantastic. I think I might have been associate number 6 or number 7 with him, where he basically would have associates come in, they'd work for a while, and then they would buy a practice in town because they loved him, they loved the town, they loved all. So he would get another associate, and he always let his associates take whatever patients wanted to go with them to the new practice, because
nice
there was in reality it was always a handshake deal. That was always kind of part of the deal. Here's the thing, and there were some that would go, sure. I mean, if you were, but my dad was pretty confident about himself, so it wasn't like it was a big deal. And he was, he was so busy all the time, so it worked all the way around. But so he kind of knew how to be boss to an associate. By the time I got there, his mentorship ability was pretty good, and that was helpful. A lot of times we're working at the same time. That was helpful. If you can find a mentor, and I was particularly lucky because it was my dad, but mentorship is big. And I got to say, I know that it's hard though. It's hard to find, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't happen that often, and it isn't natural for a lot of people. So in that way, you kind of have to have, having perspective is something that is tough to have of your own. Like, you guys have friends that you can talk to about this stuff to kind of get someone looking at it from a different angle than you're seeing it. Because when it's you're just seeing what's right in front of you. But when you can bounce it off other people, they can kind of see. So the story is, that's where, like, case selection, that's a huge thing. Like, if you're gung-ho and someone else is looking at it, they don't really have a dog in the fight, but they look at it and go, wow, if that were in front of me, I would maybe think this or whatever. I think being honest with and having people that you trust their opinion, that's huge. And I think that's the one thing where social media or, basically technology, you guys have something that we didn't have when I got out of dental school, which is to say, you know what, Joe, you could put an x-ray up of this tooth and say, what do you guys think? Do you think this is a tooth I should tackle or not? Right. Or is this a tooth that, how many canals should I expect to look here? And, with all the technology that we have, it's not hard to ask questions. The thing about it is, though, is that I'm sitting here like beating up on Joe only because he put it out there.
Oh, do it, man! I love it.
We do this a lot.
Hey,
to
Joe's self-esteem is about down in the dungeon. So
yeah, my assistants and hygienists actually listen to this, and they actually. They're like, oh, you okay, Joe? They're hard on you on that podcast.
but I mean, like when you'll talk about your failures, there's a chance that you'll maybe not run into that situation again. That's a big deal. Like,
Alan, you touched on something I want to kind of let out people that listen to this podcast. If you're in dental school or a young dentist looking for a place, I think as a young dentist, there's two kind of routes. I think you can chase money right out of school, or you can chase mentorship and good opportunity. And sometimes, where the money is right away isn't necessarily where the mentorship is. And
that's probably accurate to some extent. But you don't have to have a mentor that works with you either. That's the other thing. I mean, you can be in a situation. You can be in a situation. Okay. So here's what I would do if you were itching for a mentor, particularly a clinical mentor. You guys listen to the dental guys at all?
Yep.
Those guys are both really sharp. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And Wes says things that gets under my skin because he's so direct about it, and he's usually right about everything. You'd be hard pressed to do worse for a clinical mentor, or you'd be hard pressed to do any better than these guys. Either one of them would be great. I think they're willing to. It's that kind of thing. People who are passionate about it, who are willing to talk about it, and they're nerds, man. They'll talk about this stuff all day long. And I know they won't be mad at me saying that because it's true. Business stuff. You look at Costas. That dude answers email day and night. I mean, there's people available for you on that. I think that, so it doesn't have to be someone that you work with, and it doesn't have to be someone that you are on the phone with 4 times a day either. I mean, I suppose it can be, but the money thing is frustrating. You guys, I know that you guys have it worse than we did because you have to be paid pretty well right off the bat. It's pretty tough to like take that vow of poverty. It's because at this point, just to cover your loans, you got to get paid pretty well. Like no one's going out there and buying a mansion right off the bat.
I think that's what makes it hard sometimes, to really, say no to certain cases, even though, because we have massive amounts of loans, but I agree though, case selection is huge. It's just, I think sometimes we're a little too gung ho because we know we have that massive amount of debt in the back of our mind, and we never want that to override our patient care, but it makes it a little harder to give up cases, if we see something that I think I could do that, instead of knowing that I can do that.
But I mean, also just, you're going to be able to pick those cases better when you've been doing it for a little while too.
That's true.
I mean, and it's all good that way. It's you can't get experience without just doing some stuff.
That's true.
Now, mind you, when you don't have, it was really good to have Dad as a senior doc. It really was. And even when I bought my practice, I was only a couple towns over, and I could always call him on the phone. So I had someone to fall back on, and that's not everyone does. That was really helpful. So having people to fall back on, to whether it's talk about what's going on, just how you're feeling, which is frankly pretty important to talk about, even if it doesn't help with the case, just understanding where you're at. But then talking about cases, that's a big deal. If you can get someone's perspective who has a clinical mindset that goes along with yours, that you kind of mesh with. Okay, so like my best friend in the entire world, dental student, we were dental students together. He's a freaking amazing surgeon. He's nuts. He's like Moody level, just does implants, sedation, all this crazy stuff. I check with him a lot on clinical stuff, but it's only when I literally don't know what's going on. I can't check with him about clinical stuff about implants. I don't have his technical skills. I can't even like, so in some ways it's like I can talk with him about it, but it's not like I'm going to be doing what he does, what he does. So if you can find someone who meshes with you kind of at a same clinical level, and I think you guys are probably like that right now.
That's really cool, because I never really thought about finding mentorship outside of kind of my own realm of people that I know. But you're right, you can find mentors in people that you don't necessarily know right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Facebook groups are so amazing too. That's how. Okay, you guys know who Dr. Ed is on Dentaltown? He doesn't really post much anymore. I'm not really on Dentaltown anymore either, but I don't even know his name. But I wanted to be him. I wanted to be him, and I message with him all the time. He's the reason that I use the rubber dam right now today. Honestly, he shamed me into using it a lot of years ago. So
really. Hey, speaking about the social media deal, how did Dental Hacks Nation become such a big deal? Like,
I have no idea.
Dental Hacks Nation, and it's an excellent source of mentorship and knowledge. When did this start?
Last October. That's really, it's not even a year old. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Man, it's
How many
taking off.
thousands?
That's
How many
awesome.
thousands members are there now? It's like
We're on just under 14,000 right now.
that's unbelievable.
It is, yeah. It's crazy, and I don't quite know. It's literally, it's like it's got a life of its own. I don't even know what the story is on that. Like, to this day, I'm like, wow, I don't.
So
like,
did you and J-Lip start it together?
Yeah. We started it. It was really funny. We have quite a few groups that have Dental Hack's name on it. He was mocking me, giving me a hard time because we have like, oh, good, we'll start another group. It's just what we need, because we had a page. We have a page that we don't do anything with, which is different than a group completely. I didn't realize the difference at the time. Apparently, we had the Fat Attack, which was Matt Standridge and I kind of started a group a couple years ago of people trying to do weight loss. We have other groups, but and actually Matt Standridge gets credit for the name Dental Hacks Nation. He yelled that out in an episode of 3 years ago or something like that.
Really?
And we sort of grabbed that name when we were putting the group together. So and it just, so we started out with the people that we knew. My thought was this: people might want to talk with the people on the Brain Trust. So why not put them in a group where it could be private enough and they could ask questions to people in the Brain Trust? That was the thought. And it sort of became, not now, I mean, most people in the Dental Hacks Nation don't even know it's a friggin' podcast. It's how big it is. Much bigger than even the podcast listeners. It pisses me off to this day. If they would all listen, can you imagine?
I know. I see. We understand your frustration because we're like, we're like small time in podcast business here. But still, I know, like, if all those people would listen to your podcast, and you put stuff on there sometimes, like, hey, listen to our show.
Yeah,
it's funny because like you'll see some of the comments on the Dental Hacks Nation, and like someone, I think maybe you'll post an episode, you guys just released, or someone will make a reference to an episode, and there's always like a comment on there somewhere, like someone's asking like, how do I find it, or what,
Yep.
Is this on iTunes, or just stuff that, like, I mean, they probably should know by now, but it's hilarious.
But the other thing is that people, the problem is there's this fraternity of people that listen to podcasts and already know about it. So it's all, we already know what to do. We're not very good at bringing people into the fold because it's all natural to us. We've been doing it. And to this day, we don't have a great like video of here's how you do this, and it does every once in a while. I'll put up a snarky post saying, hey, once there was a time there was just a podcast. We didn't have this group. So we have this group because there was a podcast. So go listen to the podcast. I do that. It doesn't help either. No one ever listens. So I keep trying.
We talked at the beginning. You were saying, how I heard your voice at the Voice of Dentistry, and I was like, that sounds really familiar. Well, with the Dental Hacks Nation, I mean, we're all on there looking at stuff and reading posts. There's always there's a ton of people that post stuff, but there's always like people, and just I'll throw a name, Mac Jones. Never met the guy, but I always see that name posting something. So it's like it's the same thing. I don't know his voice, but I know his profile picture because I see it on there. So I'm sure if I seen him out, I would not know how he sounded, but I was like, Mac Jones.
Mac was at the Voices of Dentistry for the second day. He wasn't there for the first day, so he snuck in at the end. But Mac. I met Mac for the first time at I was taking a course at T-Bones in North Carolina last year. So he's a great guy. He's definitely a regular, to be sure.
It's cool, man, because we're so new. Like Dental Town, I get on there sometimes, but nothing like I think maybe people used to. Maybe some people still do, but I feel like I'm on Hacks Nation way more than I am Dental Town, and I'm just now feeling like I'm getting caught up to speed on like the different people and different courses and different philosophies in dentistry that we're kind of blind to right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. It is funny too, because like Dental Town was a place where you got to know these people, and then all of a sudden and the Dental Hacks Nation is no different now. But like everyone's sort of making their like everyone's got a course. Everyone ended up because they know something, they're trying to teach it, and so Dental Town was a good place to promote it. And Dental Hacks Nation is kind of like that too. Although what I like about the Dental Hacks Nation is people can kind of share about courses they've taken. A lot of times people are talking about best CE4, and there's a lot of different experience there, so I think that's cool. It is funny. Dental Town, I know Dental Town's not worried about when people say, oh my gosh, I spend so much time on the Dental Hacks. Dental Town's not worried about us. I'm pretty sure of that. Dental Town has like millions of downloads a day or whatever. It's like they're still a monster. The other thing is their international like representation is insane. They have a ton of international posters and stuff. So we're sort of we're sort of standing on the shoulders of giants that way, I think.
Hey, you could always do like I guess you could maybe title, like Hacks Nation CE or something. You could branch it.
Well, and it is funny. We've got some Dental Hacks Nation groups that are specific to endo, and those groups are getting more active too. That was sort of that was some of the moderators wanted to kind of spread it out so we could get more specific stuff. I don't know. The problem with Facebook, of course, is it's really hard to search stuff. Like there's a thread that was going on yesterday, and I can't for the life of me find it because there's so many of them and you can't search them. That's one of the problems with it.
That is one thing that is a little tricky. Alan, I got a question, man. If you were us, go back, where just starting your career, what are some, if anything, what are some things that you would do different? Maybe you would tell us to look out for, watch out for.
What do you guys do when you have a bad day? What are your coping mechanisms? That's the question I would ask. What, like in all seriousness, what is it that you do when you feel so bad? When you've just perfed a second molar and you feel like you're about 2 inches tall and you feel like a fool.
I'll tell you what I did yesterday. And I felt pretty bad. I went to Staples and bought a book, like a journal, and I told myself I'm going to start writing down my failures and fears to document them and hopefully not repeat those again.
Yeah, while you're at it, write yourself failures and fears are fine. Maybe don't focus on them. I'd focus on 3 things that you're grateful for every day, and you can't have the same one the next day. So start with your gratitude list. Put your feelings or your failures and feelings, but also put what you're grateful for, because honestly, the failures are, here's the thing. I had an extraction case, months ago, and I went on the Dental Hacks Nation and complained about it. I felt horrible. It's a patient that he was pretty mad. I've known him for 1,000 years. This tooth should have popped out like nothing. And I couldn't for the life of me get it. And it was just a mess, and I went home. This was within the last 6 months, probably. I felt like a turd. I felt like, I'm like, God, I don't even know what I'm doing. This is ridiculous. And the funny thing is that now, like the next day, I can't even remember what I was upset about. And that sounds silly, but I think it's just like the rolling off your back factor just gets better after you've done some stuff for a while. And the great thing is that you never know when you're going to get a chance to be a hero to that person anyhow. So this guy, I sent him to a surgeon. They took the tooth out, and it was, remember I said I don't like to lay flaps? They laid a flap. Oh, God, they lay a flap. And he had surgical complications like crazy, like the stitches let go, and it was a mess. And he called me, and they weren't answering his call, and I felt horrible because I hacked him up pretty good, and I didn't get the tooth out. So I was going to make sure. Well, shoot, I covered him with a Medrol dose pack. I went in there to check to make sure that I went in on a weekend to make sure that the flap was okay. I did some stuff. I think I even numbed him up because he was having so much pain. I covered him when the guys who saved my ass weren't calling him back. And even though I felt like a jerk for not getting the job done, I was actually able to be a hero to that guy, and we're tight again. I mean, we're okay again. So I know that's sort of a goofy story, but understand that your failures are it's not always the end. Maybe that's there as a learning experience. I'm not
That's
saying
true.
that,
That's true.
No,
but maybe that second molar that perfed, if an endodontist can't make the save there, and they probably can. I mean, it's in a lot of cases that's not as big of a deal now as it used to be.
Right.
But maybe that's something that you can help that patient with financially, and you can restore the implant for nothing or something like that.
Exactly.
As a learning, like the bottom line is that allow yourself to be human, and that's sometimes that's harder than others. It's because the reality is we're tough on ourselves. I mean, we're pretty tough on ourselves. Maybe some people aren't, but I mean, I'm always tough on myself. I felt so bad, and it was a tooth I couldn't get out, and it was like one of these things where I should have been able to get that out. Well, that day it wasn't going to happen, but I was able to make the save on that guy. So you got to kind of give yourself that break, but develop coping mechanisms. You described a coping mechanism, a journal. And although I would probably go more for gratitude than failures,
I did it I'd never done it in my life, but I was so mad.
That's a tough book to read over the years. Like, let's see
that's a little
everything that I
dark.
sucked at over the years.
I was so mad last night. That's why I did. But
you know,
asked
Alan,
about
another thing that I think helps us, and it's something that helped us get through dental school, and I think it's something that's made us close, is, well, for one, we have guys like you that have been through this and that we can bounce things off of and are humble enough to say, you know, yeah, I've made mistakes and here's what I've learned from them. But also for us as a group to be able to text throughout the day and say, here's what's going on, or at the end of the day when something's been tough, you know, to just talk it out and have each other. You know, I mean, it's even if it's down to one of their new babies is sick and we're there for each other, not just in the dental world, but just with life in general.
Sure.
And that's one of our big things. I mean, that's why we named our podcast Life in Dentistry, because we want to be about the dentistry and that's our career. But obviously, as you know, there's so much more to life than dentistry. And we're going to be better dentists, I feel like, if we're doing well at life. And so that's why I'm appreciative of our group to kind of be there for each other at the end of the day to say, look, here's what's going on. I need y'all's help, or what do y'all think about this, or whatever.
I developed really, really unhealthy coping mechanisms is what I'm saying. Like, I know that there was, you know, I had trouble with drugs and alcohol. I don't have to go into great detail, but the bottom line is that that was a long time ago, but it was sort of my fallback because I sort of learned to do that in dental school. I'm convinced that my habits, although I don't think I was an alcoholic in dental school, I learned those habits. And I hate to say, golly, you shouldn't ever drink alcohol or should never, but understand that it's not hard to use that as a coping mechanism. And it's not necessarily a very healthy one. It's one thing when you, every once in a while, but to say, you know, I know how to change the way I'm feeling and this is how I'm going to do it. You got to keep an eye on that. But like the idea that you're going to journal about that stuff, that's pretty healthy. Like exercise, nothing better than blowing off some steam if you like to exercise, if there's something you like to do. I will tell you that another unhealthy coping mechanism that I have is eating, like taking solace, and that's a bad habit to have. I mean, you can just a lot of, honestly, it's silly. These are things that like professionals should be smart enough to not have to worry about this, but we're all giant bag of feelings, like human beings. That's what we are. So it's like, you gotta these are things you have to be in touch with actually what your feelings are. Like you have to step back and go, wow, what exactly am I feeling right now? And be able to identify these things, because what happens is you walk through your day feeling these things. You have no idea how you're even feeling. Like you're angry about whatever, and it's coming out all sideways, and you don't even know. Mm-hmm. And it's because we're human beings, and we're busy looking at, you know, crown preparations. We're busy trying to diagnose conditions. We're not, you know, those are concrete things, where in reality you have to step back and go, okay, what am I feeling right now? You know, that's a big deal. And it's not stuff, particularly as men, we're not trained to do that. We're not supposed to do that, you know.
I think it's really hard too if you've had a bad day or a bad experience, and then all of a sudden you got to put on this happy face because you're going to check a hygiene patient. Yes. I mean, that's tough, and that after a long day of that, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it just wears you out mentally. It borders,
you're almost a sociopath to be able to do it that way. Seriously, like. The best is when I'm working on a pedo patient, stuff is going badly, and then I have to go do the hygiene check. HIPAA would frown on the way that I handle that. Especially if it's a patient I know. I'm like, do you hear what's going on in there? You can go in and finish up. I'll stay here, and you can make light of it. Because to be honest, you know, like no matter, unless you've got a quiet room, everyone knows what the hell's going on.
Oh yeah,
everyone knows. And it's like so that is, patients love that you're human. By the way, patients that is not something anyone wants to admit. Everyone wants to look like the smiling dude on the website. Patients love it when they know that you put your pants on the same way they do, one leg at a time. You know, they love that, and so. When you can go in a hygiene check and explain that your son is sleepover camp for the first time tonight, and they're like, wow, he has a son. He's worried about the same stupid things that I would be worried about, and he's a human being. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's how you start a relationship, to be honest. And I think a lot of people are not. They won't do that. They want that separation. And I mean, maybe that's healthy. Maybe I do it in an unhealthy way. But man, I love that my patients kind of know
like
that
you,
about.
Alan. I'm like the kind of person, and I want this. I do this with the people I work with, like assistants, hygienists, and patients. I don't create a distance. I try to make a connection.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like develop relationships with everybody. Are you like that too?
Yeah, I am. And the other thing is I'm a natural people pleaser, so I avoid conflict like crazy, kind of all over the place, which is not. It doesn't make me a good manager. I'll say that of people, but but my office is a great place to work. I'll say that. I mean,
I bet you all have a blast.
we have a pretty good time, and most of the patients like. Okay, there is something to be said about if you have an office that understands that's what you're like, and your team can feel that comfortable as well. There's a lot of patients that think they need sedation that don't when you can hold their hand through stuff like that. That's real. At least it's been my experience.
No, I agree. Alan, man, I want to kind of say this to the listeners. We said it before we started, but everyone that listens to Life and Dentistry podcast, you're not listening to this if it's not for Alan Mead and Jason Lipscomb, who are kind of like role models to us in the podcast world, because they
paved the way.
Input and advice when we first got started, and we modeled a lot of things after them. And every time we asked for help, they gave us help. They never tried to hide anything from us, never thought of us as anything but people they wanted to instill wisdom upon. So publicly, we want to say thank you, and we are very grateful that you're on with us here tonight.
I'm glad you guys are doing this. I think it's
we really appreciate it.
Hey, how's the new Alan Mead experience treating you?
good. It's good. It's different in a good way. It's a little less. I don't know. It's shorter. That was one thing. Like I'm like, okay, a shorter form, because that was, if we got criticism at all, a lot of times for the dental hacks, is because it was long and people with a commute wanted to be able to eat one whole episode at a time, and it took them a couple commutes or whatever. So I was going to do that. But the other thing is we do much like you guys do on the Alan Mead Experience. I hit record and go. Yeah. Where the dental hacks, we kind of record things in different times and then sort of put them together. So that's kind of, it's live to tape or live to drive, if you will, where, it is what it is. I don't do much editing for it, which is fun. But I also thought it'd be kind of fun to do. What I really wanted to do is I wanted to hear I wanted to hear what Jason Smithson does with his kids on the weekend, or I wanted to hear, does David Clark like to water ski, and why he doesn't anymore? That's kind of what it was all about in the beginning. I haven't quite hit that yet, but I'm like sort of dentists as people. It's great to know that they're dentists, but it's also like dentists as people. And so in a way it's a dental podcast, but it's not as dental as the dental hacks, if you will. Yeah. But I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
So how's it like? I mean, you have two podcasts going. I mean, is that easy? I guess not easy to balance, but I mean, what's that like? Because, I mean, you've got both sessions to edit,
Yeah.
And with me having to edit this, I mean, I know just one show can be a headache sometimes.
I'll tell you what, though, I've been doing it for some years. It's a lot faster after you've been doing it for a while.
You can probably do it with your eyes closed.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is, a lot of reps will do that for you. The Alan Mead Experience needs almost no editing. I for better or for worse, I don't do a ton of editing there, which is nice. So then you just kind of put the episode up. Show notes are the worst. I hate show notes. I hate it. I hate writing the show notes.
I've actually gotten pretty lazy here the last 2 or 3. I think if you go to iTunes and click on this episode or the last one, like Real Talk, I think like it just says, hey, this is the podcast.
It's the worst. On social media. The worst part, and you'll notice in the dental hacks, it's a lot of repetitive stuff. I do okay, but typically that's the last thing I'm putting up. The show notes. The few times I've actually enjoyed it is when I did the show notes way before I did the sound stuff. But like, I mean, it's very repetitive. I do it. And I'll say that, I have little kids, so they go to bed and that's when we do podcast stuff. Like it's many usually a couple, 3 nights a week, we're doing podcasting stuff one way or the other, which is fine. I've sort of committed to that. And unlike a lot of the guys who do their episodes way ahead of when they're going to be released, well, the Dental Hacks is usually a couple episodes ahead of each other. Al and me experience is literally Monday's episode has not been recorded yet. So I'm kind of hoping to stumble across something this weekend.
Well, see, that's how we started. We were thinking, okay, we've got to get a backlog and everything. And, we got to the point to where we had, 2 or 3 episodes now, like what you said, like Thursday, like this is the next episode, you know what I'm saying? Like this is the next one. So, I mean, it helps you stay on task. I mean,
it does, but I don't panic about it anymore because here's the thing. This is probably the worst kept secret in the world, but Jason and I can crank out an episode with no guests, with nothing, we've been doing this long enough. We can just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jason he finishes my sentences, if you've noticed, and vice versa. We sort of have been doing it long enough. And actually we get enough. That's the best thing. When you've been doing this for a while, you get audience mail. So basically they can kind of carry you through like emails and stuff. You can just kind of discuss that. Plus Jason knows freaking everything about social media. He used to lecture on that stuff, and he's a font of knowledge. So basically, a lot of times you'll notice what I do is I just ask him stuff about that. That can be an entire episode.
You'll have to tell him that we missed having him.
Social media.
What's that?
I said we need to get on and just have a conversation with him about social media.
Yeah, totally. You should.
Say when we get him on next week or whenever he can come on, we need to talk about that stuff with him.
Yeah. You guys should get McCall too. He's between. I personally think McCall and Jason should like do their own. They should be a touring show because they really know a lot about that stuff. It's fun to listen to them too.
Yeah, y'all are hilarious too. I mean, the two of y'all, it's so entertaining to listen.
Jason keeps it quiet for a while, and then he'll stick the knife in. You know what I mean? Like he comes in with and he'll especially on the brain trust. He won't say anything for like 5 minutes. Then he'll come out of nowhere and floor everyone. It's a talent of his. It really is.
Well, Alan, I mean, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, This has been a ton of fun. Like Joe was saying, we kind of started this journey, the Voice of Dentistry. I mean, we're super stoked about the next one coming up.
Yep.
So if people are wanting to look into that, there is a website now, right?
Yep, voicesdentistry.com. It is January 26th and 27th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Like I said, before September 18th, $300 off your ticket. So it's worth doing now for sure.
Now, as far as dental students, is that the same?
There's a dental student rate. I have to tell you, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's significantly lower. Yeah, we're making it, and I want to say that's they get it figured out on the website. If they don't, we'll make sure it does. So if for some reason it's not there, just email me or go on the Dental Hacks Nation. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Sounds great.
Yeah, for sure. If you are a dental student listening, you've got to go to this. You have to 100%. Do not miss it.
It's cool. It is cool. I will say that for dental students, you'll run into some dentists that are pretty forward thinking. These might be the kind of dentists you want to run into while you're still in dental school. I agree.
Mm-hmm. That's right. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for tuning in to the episode today. Be sure to follow us through our Life in Dentistry on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Life in Dentistry and on Twitter at Life in Dent. If you have any questions, you can send us an email to lifeindentistry@gmail.com. And also be sure to head over to iTunes and let us know how we're doing with the episodes. And again, thank you all for tuning into the show because we couldn't do this without you. And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
The Dental Podcast, where real people, real stories, and real life come together.
This is the Life and Dentistry Podcast.